Here we are. We have one layer. We have the selection tool active, and we have our file name in this tab. The first thing I want to do is I'm stuck on a little laptop because my large monitor's USB ports failed. I'm going to switch the screen mode. See how it has an F in parentheses? If I hit the letter F one time, now I have a little more room to work. If I hit it a second time, however, I am in full-on pro mode. Should this ever happen to you, just hit F again and everything comes back. A quick gotcha. Some of you will hit tab on accident and all your tools will go away. Just hit tab again, everything comes back. All right, so I'm going to hit F one more time. Now I'm in full screen mode. Something that students haven't really learned as well as they should is the layers, and it's so fundamental to Illustrator and Photoshop. I want to begin right here, and let's just double click on that layer name and call this background. Now in Photoshop, the background layer is by default the bottommost layer. It's a good idea to go ahead in Illustrator, even though Illustrator and Photoshop work very differently. It's a good idea to use this as a background layer. We're making a gravatar. We have a square canvas and want to use the rectangle tool. Now you may have these things all in one list because you have more screen real estate than I do. But however you do it, here's the rectangle tool. And if you play it around in Illustrator, and I'm clicking and holding, there are a number of other tools underneath the rectangle tool. But I'm going to go ahead and just select the rectangle tool for now, and I'm going to open this up so I have more room to show you exactly what's going on here. Now, in Illustrator, this is the fill and this is the stroke. See how when you hover over these, fill and stroke? Let's say I want a colored background on my gravatar, but I don't want a stroke. Well, the first thing to do is if you click once on that, nothing happens. But if you double click, you get the color picker pops up, and you can pick whatever hue you want and what value, and we pick whatever you like. So let's say you like kind of a blue and not so purple. You find your color, and you can always change this later. It's no big deal. And say OK. Now you've got a blue fill, but you also have a black stroke. So you can click on the stroke and then see this little do not enter sign. It says none on it. If you click on none, it has no stroke whatsoever. And I will tell you right now, there will be at least a dozen kids who draw a rectangle next that has a stroke. I'm asking you not to put this here on purpose, and I don't want you to do it, so that I see if you're following instructions. Now, notice when I come up, see that little purple thing that said intersect? And if I come down here, it's going to say center. That, under View, is Smart Guides. If your Smart Guides are off for some reason, if that checkbox isn't there, View, make sure Smart Guides are on, because Smart Guides are your friend. Not always. There will be times where we turn this off. But see where it says you get that intersect up here? Now if I click and drag and I come down till I see it again, this rectangle is exactly the same size as the stage. And if I get the black arrow and click once on it, you have more room in your screen. I'm going to have to click on transform, and I can see the X and Y. Well, mine are at 0, 0 because I have my registration point, my reference point in this upper left-hand corner. Chances are yours is in the center and you have 500 pixels if you followed instructions, and your square is 1,000 pixels square. Understand? That's the part. This is following instructions. If this isn't working for you, and I'm going to move my reference point back up here because I like this most of the time, helps me think in Illustrator. And I'll click to get rid of that. And now this is our background layer. And I want to lock this. See, we've got visibility, which says show me, and I'm just clicking on that, rolling over it, and it says toggles visibility. Then right here, I can click on the lock. And that means I can't do anything. I get this little, what is that? A pencil with a do not enter sign. Can't do anything. I can get back to my rectangle tool and I can't draw anything because this layer is locked. I'm going to go back to the selection tool. This is your go-to tool that you're going to come back to again and again and again and again and again. And I'm going to create a new layer. See this little icon? See this icon right here in the layers panel? And if for some reason, yes, mine looks different than yours, I should have started here. This is one of those mistakes. You are probably on Essentials. If I click there, now that probably looks like what you're looking at. But I set up a custom workspace and it's right here. We'll learn how to do that. I kind of like working in this mode. You'll customize Illustrator to suit your needs. I'm going to go ahead and click on this new layer icon. And this we'll just call art. So we have two layers, and I want you to do this. And this, notice now we can, if I get the rectangle tool, you don't want to draw the same color because that's not going to work too well. And this is going to be hideous. But now I can draw out a little square, a little rectangle. If I hold down the Shift key, I constrain this to a square. If I hold down Option and Shift, I draw from the center point wherever I started. If I let go of Option and keep holding down Shift, I draw a square. If I let go of Shift, I draw a rectangle. And no matter what I draw, I can always, using the selection tool, I can always grab it and resize it. And this is not something you can do in Photoshop because they're two different, well, you can do it, but it doesn't work out well. And I can rotate it, do all kinds of stuff. There's a text tool right here. If you want to add text, hey, why not add a new layer and call it type or text? And then when you type your text, you guys are used to, because of PowerPoint, you are used to drawing out a text box. This is area type in Illustrator. I'm going to hit delete. Area type, select it with the selection tool. It automatically selects that last item, and I'm going to hit delete. If you work with type, use point type, which means you just click and Illustrator puts down some text for you by default, and you type something and then select it, and when it's selected you can change things like the color. Let's make it white. Like the font, you can choose whatever you have. I may have fonts that you don't have. Well, no, I do have fonts you don't have. So you pick some font that you like. You can change the size by either selecting something, highlighting this, and typing in a number. Or, and this is not a good idea, squishing or stretching your type. Probably not a good idea. Command Z to undo. If you're going to change the type, remember how we constrained by holding down Shift? You can do the same thing here. So what I want you to do inside this is to create your gravatar. You're going to work with simple items in here. I'm not going to show you how everything works, and you're going to create a very rudimentary gravatar on this, and I'll show you how to save it and how to use that file next. But I want you working on separate layers. If, let's say, oh, I have to have that, that's just perfect. It's not, but let's pretend it is. You can lock that. So you make sure that when you select this to work on this, you have that layer selected. You're working on the correct layer. And then I'll show you just a couple more tricks. If I hold down the Option key and drag out a copy, notice how, because of Smart Guides, I can put it exactly where I want it to go. And then I hit Command D, hold down Command and hit D. I'm holding down Command and tapping D. I can get extra ones of these. And notice how, if we click away, notice how the sample text is on top of this? That's because the layer is on top of the art layer. If I drug that art layer, the type layer down underneath it, it would be behind it. The layer stack shows you, I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that, shows you where things are. Now, if this were unlocked and I wanted to select this, I would accidentally get my sample text. However, pretty easy if I lock the type layer and then click and drag with my selection tool, I can then move this and rotate this and put this wherever I want. Okay, because we rotate, it's going to be pretty hard to get this thing back to vertical. Probably easier just to make it all on your own. And then if I wanted to move this text and say that's it, this is a hideous, horrible gravatar, but let's say this is what you wind up with. You've worked on the layers, you play with this. I want you to push this, spend most of the period trying to do this. Don't worry about finishing today. Learn a few simple things in Illustrator, practice them, practice. How did Command D work? How did Shift work? What about that Option? How did I resize the text? Practice this so you get these fundamentals down, because we are going to use these fundamentals over and over and over. And I don't want to beat this to death every single time we do it. Practice. Got it? Go ahead. Have some fun. Play around. See what works, what doesn't work. I will tell you right away, you're going to click on the perspective grid and say, how the heck do I make this go away? There are lots of ways, but the surest way is to come up to View, go down to Perspective Grid, and say Hide Grid right there. Shift Command I. Gets rid of the grid. For everything else, you probably won't break anything. Don't touch the Slice tool. I wish it wasn't even here. That's all I got for you. Have fun, and I'll come back and show you how to save that gravatar out. Although we're running pretty late.